Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be giving an introduction to a new asset that I just released called Gloomy Signals, and if you own Gloomy Signals you can kind of use this as a tutorial on how to use it. So what is Gloomy Signals? Gloomy Signals is kind of a slight replica of the Signal system and the Godot engine, which is a really powerful, basically, event system. And event systems are really good for communicating between objects and getting rid of the coupling and the dependencies between objects. And I'll kind of demonstrate what I mean in this little demonstration I'm going to give. So let's say that you have an object. Let's go to object A. I just have this little project with 3 objects. And let's say I hit the space bar. And now when I hit this space bar, my object C is drawing text to the screen with a variable called mText. And I want to change that text. So when I press the space key, it's going to say with C mText equals new text. Okay, so the text will change. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that in the room. I'm about to get to the point in a second. So now we have the new text, and that's all great and stuff. But why should we have to worry about what C is doing from A? That isn't good design and architecture. Instead, what we would like to do is be able to say send event or something like this, and then say space A space hit, and then send in some argument. And when we do this, we're not worried about what anyone does. We would like to be able to have other objects that are concerned with this kind of event to register and have their own functionality inside of their own logic. So this object just raises the event, and the other objects, and it doesn't know anything about the other objects. It doesn't have to. So that's exactly what these signals do for you. So let me go ahead and demonstrate how that can work. So originally we had this code. We can get rid of this code and simply say signal emit. And then now we can give an identifier for the type of signal. This can be an enum, an integer, or a string. And I'm just going to use a string just like we just had. Actually, yeah, let's just use a string. And I'm going to say A space hit. All right. And then let's send in an argument, because we can do that with these signals. And the argument is going to be new text. Okay. And now we have something that emits a signal, just like we had previously. Now, if I go to object C, here we want to define what happens when that event is raised. So this object will handle that logic on its own. So how do we do that? Well, we say signal connect, because we're connecting this instance to a specific signal. And you'll notice that the signal system includes event or script. So you can register a user event for your instance to execute when that event gets fired, or you can register a script. So if you aren't going to be passing any kind of arguments, then it's probably better off to use a user event, because it's more private and it's not just a script floating out in the middle of nowhere. But if you're going to want to pass in arguments and do stuff with arguments, you'll want to use a script. So let's do signal connect script, and then I can just say A space pressed. And you wouldn't want to actually use strings here. You'd want to assign the strings to variables and use the variables from a local place, or use enums. And I would recommend enums because they're really nice way of naming integers, basically. If you don't know what an enum is, just I'll link something down below. It's really important. You should use it if you're using GameMaker or any language. They're really good. All right, and then we give it an instance, which is going to be our ID, and we give it a script. And I haven't made the script yet. I'm just going to call it scr c as our object space pressed. You would denote it with like a signal. I don't know, some way of saying that it's reacting to a signal. Maybe, depending on what it is. But I'm just gonna, let's create that, and I'm gonna do scr underscore c underscore space pressed. And now in the space pressed script, we will put our logic. mText equals argument 0. So now it's expecting an argument. So if we were to fire this event without an argument, it could raise an error. So what you could do is you could check for argument count and do different things based on the argument counts and whatever. Just normal script handling stuff. But you'll notice that now we've assigned that script no parentheses after the script name, because if you put parentheses, it'll actually call the script. We don't want to do that. We just want to give a reference to the script. And now we have connected C to our A. And we'll get that same functionality. So if I go back to A, you'll notice there's nothing in here besides emitting a signal. It knows nothing about object C at this point. Oh, I think I might have named something wrong. You see, a signal A space hit has not been created. So it's telling me the signal hasn't been created. So I need to go A space hit. Oh, I put press down here. So it does notify you if you emit a signal that doesn't exist. There we go. New text. And that's why enums would be good, because it's a lot harder to make those mistakes. So it worked. And now this is the real power of this. What if I want a lot of things to react in different ways to the space event? Well, I can go to my object B now, and let's make a connection for it. Create, connect script. Actually, let's not connect a script. Let's connect a user event. So I'm going to connect an event. Okay. And again, you can't pass arguments to events, but instead of the script ID now, we want to just give it a user event to use, and we're just going to say 0. So now I can put a user event down here. And now we could say show message. Spacebar was pressed. A said so. Or something. I guess you don't know that A said so. You just know that you're reacting to the specific event. Okay? And now you'll see the text change from C, and you'll see a message pop up. Spacebar is pressed. So none of these objects know about each other. I can delete any of these objects from the room without creating any errors or any of that, because there are no dependencies. C doesn't know about A. B doesn't know about A. B doesn't know about C. A doesn't know about anyone. These guys are just connecting, saying, hey, if this event gets raised, then I want to do this. This guy's just saying, hey, I'm going to raise this type of event. Whoever is registered can do what they want with it. I'm just going to pass in some data that it requires. So this is really powerful for interacting with your UI or any of those situations where you're doing a lot of object dependencies and you're getting, oh, that instance doesn't exist right now, and you're doing all these checks. And you can actually increase performance with this as well. So in cases that, I don't know if I can come up with an example off the top of my head, but you have a step event and you have to do a check, like if A dot space was pressed or something, basically doing a check for some other object every step. Instead, what you could do is you could have whatever code is in this block be a reaction to an event, and then have that object that when this happens, that object would throw an event. And that increases performance because it only happens when that event happens, and you don't have to do a check every single step, every frame. So you can actually increase performance with this as well. All right, so I've kind of showed you what it is and a little bit how to use it. If you do own it, I'm going to go over right now just some of the intricacies and things to keep in mind. So if you want to know how to keep the memory clean and all that stuff using these data structures, then I'm going to be showing you that. So when you connect a signal, when your object gets destroyed, so when C, this guy gets destroyed, that signal's not going to disconnect automatically. So it's going to stay in memory. And if you repeatedly create these objects, like the entire game, like if it were a bullet, that when the bullet gets created, it connects the signal, and then that bullet gets destroyed, and then another one gets created. Over time, that would start eating up a lot of memory. So what you can do is, or what you should do, is on destroy, just call signal disconnect all, and then give it your ID. And this will go to the data structure and basically clean it up for this instance. And you can also disconnect specific signals by using disconnect, just signal disconnect, giving your ID, and then the signal to disconnect, which would be like A space pressed or whatever I named it, right? And that will disconnect the given signal for that instance. Now, there is a second way that you can manage this, and that is by when you emit the signal, you could do signal emit managed. And what this does is if the instance, it'll execute a signal and it rolls through all the registered instances basically when you do this. And if that instance doesn't exist, then it will remove that from memory. It'll remove all the signal stuff attached to that instance from the data structure. Now, there is an issue with this, and the reason why I have this as a separate function, you can choose to use this, but if you're going to be deactivating instances that use signals, don't do this. Because if you deactivate, if I were to deactivate C, and then I hit space, the signals for the connection for C would be removed, and then if I were to reactivate, it wouldn't be reacting anymore. Because when your instance is deactivated, there's no way for GameMaker, or there's no way for us to tell that it was either destroyed or deactivated. So if I call if instance exists on a deactivated object, it will return false. So if you're going to be dealing with deactivating your instances that have connections, don't use managed. Just use signal emit. And if you do use manage, when you reactivate the instance, you just need to call this connect again. But it'd probably be best just to use the regular emit, and then on destroy or whenever you want to disconnect, call your signal disconnect. Now I'm going to go through, see if there's any scripts I missed. Disconnect all, disconnect, connect event. So that's user event, emit managed. That's it. So you can see the signal system's pretty simple. Like theoretically, it's pretty simple. I mean, there's a lot of code behind it, but it's very, very useful for basically anything in your game. And a lot of people like the system in Godot, so I thought I would kind of bring it to GameMaker as close as I could. I think it works about the same. I think it's about the same architecture. You do have to kind of manage this memory on your own, though, for those deactivated instances. Now, one thing to note that I didn't mention about the deactivated instances is that if you do deactivate an instance and you're just using this regular signal emit, it's actually pretty cool because that deactivated instance will not respond to events while it's deactivated, obviously, as it should. But when you reactivate it, it'll start responding again. So it works with deactivating and activating instances like very, very well. So if you're just using regular signal emit, just remember you should probably disconnect your objects manually when you call destroy. So if your objects are getting destroyed, you should call it manually. Now, one final note I'll leave for this video. It's not bad to use these signals a lot, but I wouldn't recommend using signals for things that happen very, very, very fast. So I would use it for things like when you pick up an item, you can kind of update the GUI, update your score. You could send like an item picked up signal, and you could pass in like the item that you picked up. And then other things could handle that as they wanted. Inventory system could handle it. The GUI system can handle it. Maybe you have an effects manager that when an item gets picked up, it should flash. That could handle it as you wanted. So that's a really good instance to use it for. Now, for things that are firing every step, like something moves, don't fire an event saying, hey, this guy moved. Now, I did test, and it doesn't, the performance is really good on this system. I've made it pretty well optimized. I think for 10,000 connections and emits, it took 70 milliseconds. So it's not super great, but it's not awful. So if you were to call 10,000 connections and disconnections in a single frame, it would only cost you 70 milliseconds, which I guess is kind of high, but 10,000, I don't know if you should really be doing that 10,000 times in a single event. So that is a connection and a disconnection, I mean, and plus the destroy and create functions. Anyway, I'm going to kind of leave it there. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave a link in the Discord link in the description, sorry. And this asset is $199. Now, I'm charging for these assets not because I'm trying to get rich quick or whatever. This really does help support me. I want to do game development, YouTube tutorials. I want to do this stuff full time, right? And I have to be really careful where I spend my time. So I spend my time making this stuff because, number one, I want to make it. But time is money, especially when you're older and you have a family, you know. Time is money, so you have to be really careful where you put your time because programming, especially, takes a lot of time. So Think of it as supporting me, not as having to buy something. I would love to release it free, and I would if I could, but I put a lot of time into this stuff, as I just said. So thank you guys for all your support. Thank you for watching, and I hope this can help some of you. It's a really powerful system. Try it out. It's really easy to import. If you haven't used assets, you just go to Marketplace, My Library. You find one of your purchased or you don't need free assets will show up here too. And then you just hit the download and import, and any project that you have, it'll just import. In this case, it's just these scripts. You'll get the signals folder, and that's it. I don't include any extra objects, any extra rooms, so you don't got to worry about any of that extra clutter. It's just going to import the signal scripts. That's all you want. Awesome. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching, and yeah, hope to see you guys next time.